You are listening to Money Moves University. I'm James Jackson III. I grew up watching my family make hard financial decisions with limited information. Show is what I wish they had. This is the show where we break down everything about money that nobody ever taught you. Budgeting, credit, investing, building a business, protecting what you build, and leaving something behind that's actually worth leaving. Every episode is only 10 to 15 minutes. One topic, real talk. Things you can put to work today. But today's different. Today's episode 1, the pilot, the intro. And before we get into any of the curriculum, I need to tell you why this show exists. Because it didn't start with a business plan. It actually started with a credit card bill I couldn't pay. Stay with me. I want to back up. I graduated from college, full scholarship, 4 years paid for. I lived at home with my parents. So everything covered, every dollar accounted for. For every measure, I should have walked across that stage ahead of the game. Instead, I walked across that stage drowning in credit card debt. Nobody stole it from me. Nobody tricked me. Nobody put a gun to my head. I spent it on things I wanted, using money I didn't have, with absolutely no understanding of what I was building or what I was destroying. My credit score was a mess. I'm talking about a number so low, it was embarrassing to say out loud. The kind of number that follows you around like a shadow. Landlords see it, car dealerships see it, banks see it. Every single one of them makes a decision about you before you say one word. So I had to learn money the hard way, through bad decisions, through conversations that humbled me, through years of sitting on both sides of the table, first working at an investment firm and then working in a community bank, eventually founding the Utah Black Chamber of Commerce and then running the Utah Minority Business Development Agency. I have sat with millionaires and I've sat with people who couldn't even cover their rent. And I want to tell you something I know for certain. The difference between those two groups is rarely talent. It's almost always access to information. And then something shifted for me. I started teaching. I started teaching a personal finance course at a community college. And I realized something I hadn't expected. Every time I stood in front of that classroom and broke something down, whether it be compound interest, credit utilization, the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional, I could see something happen. The lights would come on. Something that had been confusing or intimidating or flat out invisible to them suddenly made sense. And they would sit up straighter, and I could see them start doing the math on their own life. I got addicted to that. My credit score today, excellent. Not because I got lucky, not because my income changed overnight, because I finally understood the rules of the game. And that is exactly what I'm here to share. Now, let me tell you about the world we are living in right now, because the timing of this show is not an accident. We are in a moment where managing money is harder than it has ever been in a generation. Housing costs are up more than 40% in major markets over the past 5 years. For renters trying to become homeowners and for first-time buyers, that gap has never been wider. And that's not just housing. A grocery trip that cost $100 in 2019 now costs up to $140 today. Everyday expenses have permanently repriced. Wages for most Americans have not kept up. And here's one thing that gets me every time. Over 37% of Americans say they could not cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. That's not a car repair, not a hospital stay. $400. That's like a traffic ticket or an insurance copay. Let that sit for a moment. The average American household carries over $103,000 in total debt. Credit cards, auto loans, student loans, mortgages, stacked on top of each other, compounding. More than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Not just lower income households. This number includes households earning $100,000 or more. But here's the one statistic that, to me, says everything. The average American spends more time planning their annual vacation than planning their finances. More time choosing a hotel than building a budget. More time researching flights than researching retirement options. We have a knowledge problem, not an effort problem, a knowledge problem. Because people are working hard. They're showing up. They are trying. They just never got the information they needed to make that effort actually build something. And that is where Money Moves University comes in. Money Moves University started as a curriculum, a structured, practical financial education program that I designed to fill exactly the gaps we just talked about. Not a workshop, not a pamphlet, a real sequenced curriculum that takes someone from financial confusion to financial confidence, step by step. We have 3 tracks: personal finance foundations, which includes budgeting, banking, credit, taxes, home buying, investing, retirement, legacy, everything a person needs to take control of their financial life. Then we have business mastery, starting a business, business banking, pricing, taxes, business credit, funding, scaling, and eventually exiting for entrepreneurs at every stage. And then the athlete edition, designed specifically for student and professional athletes managing NIL income, contracts, and the unique financial realities of a short career window. The curriculum is deployed through financial institutions, universities, community organizations, even employee wellness benefit programs. Anywhere there are people who need real financial education delivered by someone who has actually lived it. But here's what I learned from years in the classroom. Knowledge has a shelf life when you only get it once. You can sit in a workshop for 2 hours, take notes, leave motivated, and 2 weeks later, half of it is gone. Life gets in the way. The concept didn't stick. The urgency faded. That's why this podcast exists. It is the extension of the curriculum, the reinforcement, the conversation you can come back to every couple of weeks and take one more step forward. You don't have to be enrolled in Money Moves University to be here. You don't have to be affiliated with a partner or an institution. You don't have to be anything other than someone who wants the information. That is the only requirement for being here. So, let me tell you exactly what you're signing up for. For the week, a new episode, 10 to 15 minutes. One topic broken all the way down. We're going to move through the entire MMU curriculum over the course of this year. Budgeting systems that actually work in real life. Credit scores and how to move that number. Taxes, the stuff that HR and accountants never explained. Insurance, investing, buying your first home, starting a business, funding it, scaling it, and eventually selling it or passing it on. But this is not a lecture. I don't do lectures outside the classroom and even in the classroom. I try to keep those short. This is a conversation. There are going to be stories, real ones, from my career, from my students, from the communities I've worked in. There are going to be stats because numbers don't lie. And there are going to be specific, actionable steps you can take today. Not someday, not when you feel ready, but today. Every episode ends with one action step, not a 12-point plan, just one thing. Specific and doable in the next 24 to 72 hours, because small moves consistently made are how transformation actually happens. And one more thing. This is going to be fun. I promise you that. Financial education does not have to feel like a root canal. This show was informal and it's real. It's going to have moments that make you laugh in moments that make you uncomfortable, in moments where you pull out your phone or a pad to write something down. That's the show. And here's what I know to be true after 25 years in the financial industry. The gap between people who build wealth and people who don't, it's not intelligence. It's not ambition. It's not even work ethic. Most of the time, it is access. Access to information, access to systems, access to someone who will sit down and tell you the truth about how money actually works. That is what this show is. And here's your action step for this week, your very first one. I'm an instructor. I'm delivering homework right off the jump, right? But here, it's easy. Just go to annualcreditreport.com and pull your free credit report. All three bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Don't worry about the score right now. Just look at what's on there. You cannot plan where you are going until you know exactly where you are standing. That is step one. Everything else builds from there. So, if today's episode moves something in you, share it. Send it to one person who needs to hear it. Family member, friend, someone in your congregation or community who is trying to figure this out on their own. You could be the reason they finally get the information. And if your organization, your bank, your credit union, your university, your nonprofit, your workplace is looking for structured financial education that your community can actually use and that your institution can measure and report on, I'd like you to visit moneymovesuniversity.com because that's what we do. So the next time on Money Moves University, we're going to dive right into it in the next episode. Goal setting, building your financial vision. Because before you build anything, you need to know what you are building toward. We're going to break down exactly how to set financial goals that you will actually reach. Once again, I'm James Jackson III. I spent years being broke, confused, and embarrassed about money. Now, I spend my time making sure that story ends differently for the people I can reach. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Money Moves University. Keep building, keep moving, and I'll see you in the next episode.